Good morning, everyone. We are excited to welcome you here for our Governor's proposed budget briefing for the 23-24 fiscal year. I'm going to turn it over to our Spanish and Cantonese interpreters who will guide you through how to set up live simultaneous interpretation for this call. We also have American Sign Language interpretation during this call.
Good morning. In order to provide
recording in
access,
progress.
This meeting will have simultaneous interpretation in English, Spanish, and Cantonese. If you're on a laptop or a desktop, after we're done with this announcement, you will see a globe at the bottom right of your screen. Please click on the globe icon that says interpretation and select English. If you're on an iPad or a similar device, locate the three-dot menu on the upper right and select language interpretation. Then select English. When it's your turn to speak, please remember to be loud and clear and speak at a moderate pace, as the interpreter will be interpreting simultaneously into the other language. Next slide, please. Para facilitar el acceso a servicios de idioma, esta reunión contará con interpretación simultánea en español. Si están utilizando una computadora portátil o de escritorio, una vez que hayamos terminado con este anuncio, verá un globo terráqueo en la parte de abajo derecha de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccione el icono del globo terráqueo que dice interpretación y seleccione español. Si está utilizando un iPad o un dispositivo similar, ubique el menú de 3 puntos en la parte de arriba hacia la derecha y seleccione interpretación de idiomas. Luego seleccione español. Cuando sea su turno de hablar, por favor, recuerde hablar claro y en voz alta y a un ritmo moderado, ya que el intérprete interpretará simultáneamente al otro idioma.
大家早晨。呢一個係加州政府加州州長嘅2023到24年年度嘅預算案。如果你係想聽廣東話嘅話咧，唔該你點擊你嘅會議控件入邊嘅口譯符號。呢個係同時翻譯嘅。你點擊你想聽嘅語言。呢一次會議係提供西班牙語同埋普通話粵語嘅口譯服務。你可以選擇，如果你只係想聽口譯語言嘅話咧，唔該你點譯原文音頻正音。嗰個原文音頻正音咧，你就會喺一個清單上邊，你可以揾到嗰個選擇。
Good morning, everyone. It is so exciting to have you be able to join us this morning. I'm Lupe Hyman Milam, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Child Care and Development Division. During this briefing of the Governor's proposed budget, we will have a welcome from the Directorate, and then we're going to dive into the budget overview. Then
大家早。而家我哋係開始今日嘅會議。我哋喺討論加州州長嘅2023到24年度嘅預算案。我哋會今日慢一啲講嘢，等我哋嘅翻譯可以有機會可以同時翻譯，同埋跟我哋所講嘅嘢翻譯。
I am going to turn it over to the Director of the California Department of Social Services, Director Kim Johnson.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director Lupe Hyman Milam. Appreciate that welcome. And again, want to welcome you all. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning to talk about the Governor's proposed budget. I also want to just send out thoughts to all of you across our state who are recovering from the storms and recent weather events. We are out of the active weather phase and into the recovery phase, but we recognize that's going to be tremendous and so many people have been impacted. So our thoughts with you and resources being deployed as the president's here today, joining the governor and really assessing how they can best support. So really want to send, again, thoughts out to all recovering from those events. So as we're here today to talk about the proposed budget, we are also weathering our own bit of storm in terms of a real change in revenue pictures. So prior to accounting for some of the solutions that the governor proposes in his budget, the revenues for the general fund
我哋而
across
家提供講到抽獎
to be $29.5 billion lower than the 2022 Budget Act projections. And California now faces an estimated gap of $22.5 billion in the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Lupe, I'm not sure if you're also having some interpretation background.
I'm not, Kim. Did you have the globe on English?
I do. Okay. Well, hopefully others can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So again, as we turn and the governor proposes to address some of these issues, we are looking to build on the unprecedented investments for the people of this state, but we also are turning to some additional solutions and delays in some funding. Lupe, can you hear my background? Just checking again on volume.
Let me pause because it's interesting.
Angela, I think that we're having some issues with the interpretation.
Okay,
and sorry
let me pause.
everyone for this delay. I'm trying to figure out a solution here.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that wasn't on my end. I will pause for a moment.
And Corey, it's interesting.
Thanks, Kim. Hey.
Yeah, and Corey, it's interesting. On my end, I can't hear the interpretation, so.
Oh no, and Lupe can't hear it. Okay. I'm going to try to restart our interpretation. Give me one moment. Thank you everyone for your patience. Okay, I just updated it. Testing. Angela and Giovanna, let me know if you're set up. And I will go to the different channels. Hey, Angela, are you in the Cantonese channel? Okay. Unfortunately, it seems like our Spanish channel is functioning well, but it seems as though the Cantonese channel, we can't figure out how to get working. Apologies to everyone who joined this, who was listening into the Cantonese. We will make sure to record this again in Cantonese so that it is accessible to all of our stakeholders who need that interpretation feature. And we'll send that out to our listserv.
Great. Thank you. And thanks everyone for your patience in working through that. So again, while we are facing a much more significant and very different picture in terms of our revenue across the state, we are grateful that the governor and legislature have put us in a great position to continue investing and focusing in on those who need it most. And the budget continues to advance the health and well-being of all Californians, maintaining critical investments made in recent years to support those communities in most need, while delivering our vision for a healthy California for all. As it relates to the child care and development programs across the state, and this is, of course, the focus of this conversation that the team will get into, we are still building on the historic and unprecedented investments, everything in the rate space, hundreds of thousands of new families enrolled in accessing child care subsidies, infrastructure grants, quality improvement investments, expansion of our partnerships with local childcare intermediaries on the ground, like our childcare resource and referral agencies, our alternative payment programs, and of course, the beginnings of a new childcare data landscape designed to meet the needs of the families and the workforce. So again, we are remain committed in this space. and of course, furthering our work together with the master plan on early learning. The administration, again, as you know, this is the first step in the governor's budget process. We will be engaging with the legislature over the next several months and with all of you as we turn towards the governor's proposal for the May revision and ultimately the final budget that we propose and finalize for 23-24. So thank you for being with us today. We appreciate your commitment to children and families and your partnership in these efforts. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr.
Thank you. And thank you again, Director Johnson, for the opening remarks. We have a lot to celebrate in this historic multi-year investment. So before jumping into the governor's proposed budget, I want to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude for you for everything that you do for our families and their children. During a worldwide pandemic and a period of record high inflation, you continue to provide the families and children of California stable and quality childcare. I feel so privileged to work alongside many of you in these continued unprecedented times. With the sincere appreciation, I will now shift to our presentation. I want to briefly share some documents and legislation that has brought us to where we are today. So a little walk through memory lane. As we know, California is in the process of reforming its childcare system. In April of 2019, the California Assembly released its Blue Ribbon Commission on Early Childhood Education report. And in December of 2020, the California Health and Human Service Agency published the Master Plan for Early Learning and Care, Making California for All Kids, which chartered policies towards creating a new childcare and development system capable of being flexible to serve all children while prioritizing the needs of California's most vulnerable families and their children. This year's budget works to advance the goal outlined in this plan. Next, the Early Childhood Development Act, SB 98, transferred a number of childcare and development programs from the California Department of Education to the California Department of Social Services, effective July 1st of 2021. And AB 378 allowed family childcare providers, that includes licensed and unlicensed, to bargain collectively with the state. The Childcare Provider United CCPU is the provider's organization certified as a representative of licensed and license exempt family childcare home providers. So let's go ahead and go. Thank you. This year's budget is built upon major state investments in the childcare and development system that the state has made over the past 2 fiscal years. And so let me call out some of those investments. $423 million in fiscal year 22-23 was budgeted for reimbursement rate increases across voucher and center-based childcare programs. $2.2 billion for subsidized spot expansions for fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23. $350 million for childcare and development infrastructure grant programs. $363 million for supplemental rate payments. $898 million for stipends, including the license stabilization stipend, as well as these type of stipends that include the $525, $600 per child stipend, and coming soon, $1,442 per child stipend. And I love the emojis that are coming up. Definitely would echo the hearts. Because those were all in part of stabilizing and continue to stabilize the field. So let's go to the next slide. The proposed budget for 23-24 reflects ongoing continuing investments in California's childcare and development system, guided by the Master Plan for Early Learning and Care, The budget proposal includes $5.9 billion, and I said that was a B, billion, for childcare programs, including continuous support for the historic multi-year investment and rate increase, supplemental rate funding, infrastructure funding, and expanding childcare access to 146,000 slots. So lots for us to celebrate together of what the past years have looked like. In the next few slides, the team will provide highlights of the proposed budget. Please note, we do not plan to discuss the full budget and proposals in detail in this presentation, as such investments, let me take that back. So we will not be able to present the full budget proposal in terms of the education. However, we do have Ed Doff that will join us today to cover the transitional kindergarten and the California State Preschool as part of our presentation. Also, towards the end of the presentation, we will provide a fiscal summary and then hold a segment for questions and answers or public comment. So let's jump in and go to our next slide. Okay, so as the governor mentioned in his briefing, childcare is a key component of a state's economic development strategy. This year's budget includes $419.6 million for an estimated 36,000 additional slots as part of the $2 billion multi-year commitment towards advancing access for families who need childcare the most, with the goal of eventually funding over 200,000 additional slots. However, thousands of newly available slots since 21-22 are still in the process of being filled. And so to accommodate the time needed to fill recent slot expansion, the budget assumes that 20,000 new slots that would have been funded in 23-24 will instead be funded in 24-25. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And the next slide, I will turn it over to Jody from our Educational Department of Finance to cover this slide.
Hello, I will start with transitional kindergarten. The 2021 Budget Act outlined a plan to expand universal access to state-funded preschool. The 2023 governor's budget revises estimates for the first-year investment of transitional kindergarten from $614 million to approximately $603 million to expand access to all children turning 5 years old between September 2nd and February 2nd. And it revises the first-year investment to add one additional certified or classified staff person to every transitional kindergarten class from $383 million to approximately $337 million. These revisions reflect updated enrollment and attendance data. Building upon those first-year investments, the 2023 governor's budget includes $690 million to implement the second year of transitional kindergarten expansion, which will increase access to the program to all children turning 5 years old between September 2nd and April 2nd, and $165 million to continue supporting TK ratios of 1 adult to 12 students. Full implementation of universal transitional kindergarten is expected in 2025-26. Next, we have the California State Preschool Program. The 2022 Budget Act included $312 million Proposition 98 General Fund and $172.3 million General Fund to increase state preschool program adjustment factors for students with disabilities, dual language learners, childhood mental health, and added an adjustment factor for 3-year-olds. These increases were coupled with requirements for state preschool providers to incrementally ramp up to serving at least 10% students with disabilities by July 1st of 2024, and provide additional supportive services to dual language learners. Consistent with the 2022 Budget Act, the budget includes $64.5 million Proposition 98 General Fund and $51.8 million General Fund to continue this multi-year plan to ramp up inclusivity adjustments for the state preschool program. The 2023-24 fiscal year will be the second year of the 3-year ramp-up process, and students with disabilities will be required to make up at least 7.5% of state preschool program providers' enrollment. Additionally, the budget includes approximately $63.3 million general fund and $112 million Proposition 98 general fund to support an 8.3% statutory cost of living adjustment. That's all, and now I'll turn it back to Lupe.
Thank you for that update. So the next slide that I'm going to discuss is the 23-24 governor's budget that includes $341 million to support continuous rate increases, while the state and its partners further the rate and quality reform efforts. As you remember, this was included in last year's budget. This is to annualize and maintain everyone at the current rate. So there is no new dollars. However, it is the annualization of continuing this investment. So next, I will turn it over to Adam Lara, who will provide you with an update on the California's progress towards rate.
My name is Adam Lara on rate and quality reform. This past year, too, consistent with the Memorandum of Understanding between the state and Child Care Providers United, CCPU, and the requirements of AB 131, a Joint Labor Management Committee, JLMC convened to develop recommendations single reimbursement rate structure that addresses quality standards for equity and accessibility while supporting positive learning and developmental outcomes for children. The state also convened a rate and quality stakeholder work group in consultation with the California Department of Education to assess the methodology for establishing reimbursement rates and existing quality standards for childcare and development and preschool programs. The Rate and Quality Stakeholder Work Group provided its recommendations to the JLMC, the Finance, and Joint Legislative Budget Committee on August 15th, 2022. The JLMC, informed by the Stakeholder Work Group recommendations, presented their approach for a single rate structure to the Department of Finance on November 15th, 2022. Next slide, please. So the JLMC presented its approach towards a future single rate structure that includes the following four components. First, an alternative methodology that considers a cost estimation model which factors in the full cost of delivering early learning and care. And this data will be collected at the program level and measure staff salaries and benefits, the cost of curriculum and supplies, enrollment levels, and facility costs. The approach for a single rate structure also includes base rates guided by current state statute and regulations, which reflect state and federal health, safety and quality requirements, including ratios and group sizes, staff patterns, family engagement, professional development, planning and release time, educational materials, and child health records. Rates will also be differentiated by program type. The approach for a single rate structure includes rates for incentives, enhancements such as evening and weekend care. And lastly, the approach for a single rate structure includes an evaluation of the single rate structure, using equity as a metric and a robust engagement of early educators, families, targeted communities, and other communities regarding decisions and evaluations to develop targeted investments for early educators, children, and communities furthest from opportunity. The cost modeling will be conducted every 3 years to provide updated data. The link to the Rate and Quality JLMC presentation will be shared in the chat. Next, I will pass it over to Rachel, our Child Care Policy and Development Bureau Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. The proposed budget of 2023-24 includes the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, of 8.13% effective July 2023. The COLA is applied to CCTR, CMEG, CAP, CMAP, CFCC, Research and Referral, CHON, and local planning councils. And now I'll turn it over to Nadira.
Thank you, Rachel, and good morning, everybody. My name is Nadira Jones, Education Administrator. This year's budget includes a proposed $10 million in ongoing annual support for resource and referrals using general funds. Essentially, this is a continuation of the initial $10 million provided through ARPA funding to support slot expansion and to improve data. Thank you, and I will now pass the presentation over to Shauna from Community Care License.
Good morning, my name is Adam Rodriguez. I'm filling in for Shauna. Thank you, Nadira. Next, I will provide a brief overview for some of the recently chaptered legislation impacting childcare licensing. AB 185, the passage of Assembly Bill 185, Chapter 571, Statutes of 2022, amended the statutory definition of a school-aged childcare program within the Health and Safety Code. The bill removed the language establishing a school-aged child as one who is 4 years and 9 months and established new age requirements to include children who are enrolled in transitional kindergarten, TK, as outlined in the Education Code Section 48,000 or EDC 48,000. Per the statute, these changes are effective immediately. Childcare licensing is currently working with internal and external stakeholders to develop written directives regarding this new change. Assembly Bill 2131, Chapter 910, Statutes of 2022, changes current law by repealing the toddler component, effective January 1st, 2024. The toddler component will not be necessary once the regulations or written directives for the single license have been implemented. This bill is an extension of the Assembly Bill 605, Chapter 574, Statutes of 2018, which created a single license for childcare centers. It provides for implementation of a single license through the use of written directives until regulations are adopted. The childcare licensing will be drafting written directives via provider information notices known as PINs and regional office memos known as ROMs to inform providers and regional office staff of the new requirements. Written directives have the same force and effect as regulations. AB 2827, Assembly Bill AB 2827, Chapter 916, Statutes of 2022 allow children with exceptional needs to safely use outdoor play spaces simultaneously with non-disabled children without the need for a licensing waiver as mandated. Childcare licensing will be drafting written directives on or before January 1st, 2024 that will specify any health and safety requirements to ensure safety during commingling and would allow children with exceptional needs and non-disabled children to simultaneously play outside with another without requiring a waiver. Now I'll pass.
Good morning, everybody. This is Joey Cook with the Fiscal Forecasting Team here at the Department of Social Services. For the funding display on the screen, all child care and development programs are represented, including CalWORK Stage 1 and the Emergency Child Care Bridge Program. The largest increase in the proposed budget for 23-24 includes the application of the 8.13% cost of living adjustment, as mentioned previously. The next,
Joey?
Yeah.
It's Lupe. Can we have you slow down just a little bit for the interpreters? No worries at all.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just going back and highlighting the largest increase in the proposed budget includes the application of the 8.13% cost of living adjustment. The net decrease, you can see year to year on the screen, reflects the expiration of one-time investments, such as the stipends mentioned previously, which would be captured under the other child care program line. Further detail can be found on the DSS's local assistance finder, which includes the details shown above, as well as our estimate methodology section, which shows each program's methodology for funding. We also include a detailed summary of our federal COVID relief investments and a historical childcare budget comparison over the last 10 years. We'll go ahead and throw that link in the chat so everybody also has access to the link. And from there, we'll hand it back to Lupe.
Thank you, Joey, and thank you everyone for providing these updates. So we are now in the segment of questions and answers. Let me first say that we plan to first address the questions in the Q&A, and then we'll shift to live questions. I think questions, but there's also time to really be able to hear from you all. So feedback also. I know we were starting to hear and see that in the segment as I'm reading some of the Q&A that are open. And please know that we're taking note of all the feedback that is being voiced in also the segment too. And so we will then shift, after I review those, then I'll shift over to make sure that the hand raise feature segment is on. And so please use your hand raise feature to ensure that your question and comment has been answered. If you're calling into the meeting, please press *9 to make sure you raise your hand, and *6 to mute or unmute, just as a way of little tips there. So let me first start off with a common question that we are receiving, and I want to make sure that we acknowledge it because it's very important. I'm going to read it just like it's being posted in the questions and answers. The governor has included an expansion of PK in his budget, but has delayed childcare expansion. As a childcare provider myself, I see families who struggle for months before they find affordable childcare. Why is the state not addressing this gap in childcare for kids for all ages right now beyond 4-year-olds? I think we have to acknowledge that we want to make sure that that we know that this budget includes annualization of slots. So although it is, in a sense, not having new slots available, there's currently slots that were awarded in 21-22 and 22-23 that we are continuing to enroll for as we speak. I know that that contractors have been massively reaching out to their wait list and connecting with families in regards to those slots. Now, I can say also that the continued of slots is something that continues to be a priority for the administration as we continue to roll out future slots. However, at this point, just to make sure that we are able to catch up with the 21-22 and 22-23 slots, we are ensuring that we are providing both supports for the contractors as well as us to ensure that we're providing everything we need on our end to make sure that those slots are annualized as well as achieved. Let me pause and see if there is anything else I need to add to that. Okay, perfect. All right. Let me then jump over to the questions and answers section. I know that there is also the same question that is being asked in Spanish. And so I'm going to assume that my response was also translated in Spanish too. But it's important for us to acknowledge that we're not shying away from our commitment to slots. Okay, let's see here. I think I answered that. So one of the questions that was asked about the percentage of California's budget in comparison. So what is the percentage of the childcare compared to the rest of the California budget? I don't know that, to be honest with you. That is a great question. I'm going to pause and see if anyone from my team does. If it doesn't, it may be one that I want to acknowledge and I want to make sure that we take back and provide an update for that. But let me pause and see if anyone from the team knows that percentage.
Lupe, I don't think we have the percentage offhand, but we can definitely compare the California's budget to our programs.
Perfect. Thank you, Joey, for that. So I'm going to mark that I did it online, but I'm also going to acknowledge that we're taking this one back and making a note for that. Okay. The next one we had, let's see here. So let me jump over and see if they were the ones that I started with. I'm going to acknowledge that we did live and then and keep rolling because I want to make sure we get to all the questions. Okay, let's see here. Okay, there is some feedback that I also want to acknowledge, and it comes from, so far it sounds like the spots that they're trying to work into the budget will continue to negatively impact FCC homes, which will actually continue to decrease spots for childcare and not increases. So I want to acknowledge that as some feedback for us to consider. I also want to share again that we are continuing to enroll with the rollout of the spots of 21, 22, and 22, 23 for families who may elect to enroll into an FCC home as part of the mixed delivery system. Those particular spots that I'm thinking about are also what we call alternative payment contract, which means that they have an array to choose from, whether it's center-based, license exempt, or licensed family childcare home provider. So we'll make sure that we take this feedback back, though, because it's important to make sure we take it back. Okay, let's see here. Okay, there's a question in regards to the COLA. It says, can someone explain how the 8.13 COLA will be ULID? I understand, I'm sorry, it moved on me. Understand from the other webinars that not everyone will be getting the 8.13%. And planning for next year's budget, how can I find out if my agency will receive any of the COLA? So before I turn it to fiscal to support me with the answer of the COLA, want to call out one piece of this first is this is the governor's proposed budget. As you know, there is quite a lot of more steps then so what we share now is what we have in the proposed budget, but understanding that between now and the budget is signed, we will provide an update with even more information after the budget is signed to provide further information, which includes always as included in the child care bulletin. Let me check with Joey to see if he wants to share anything in regards to the COLA or any of the fiscal team.
Thanks, Lupe. Yeah, I think it's a really good point to know that we still have a May revision process to go through until our final budget's enacted. We do envision, similar to last year, posting our contracted amounts onto our website. So it'll come out through a CCB. So contractors will be able to see their applied COLA rate in advance of them actually receiving their contracts for planning purposes. So we do envision doing that once more again this year.
Perfect. Thank you, Joey, on that. Let's see. The next question is in regards to how does the governor, every time there's a new message, the message I'm reading shifts that. So if you see me pausing, that's me getting the message back down again so I can pull it. You get such a balancing act for sure. How does the governor's proposed budget incorporate the recommendations of the Joint Quality and Rate Stakeholder Group is what I think that moved again on that work group. Perfect. So so first, let me take a step back and thank many of you for being part of that process. There was 2 steps for that process. One was the first, the work group that many of you participated and provided recommendations at the end, and it was able to be submitted on time, and that was part of what Adam had covered. And then then we worked with our CCPU partners through a joint labor management committee, so JLMC, to provide further recommendations and then add to it and then provide it over to the Department of Finance. You probably have noticed that as part of the budget, we acknowledge that process and and added that to our budget as something that budget write-up in regards to the acknowledgement of the process itself. In terms of how it is going to be incorporated, that is something that we will continue to provide update as that is finalized, either in the May revise or in future discussions once it gets publicized. So stay tuned for next steps on that, but I want to make sure that you all felt like you were reflected with what was written in this budget to acknowledge this important step, as we're all acknowledging that rates is something we all want to take on together. Okay, let me go back again to another question. So it says, can you please explain the COLA? That means to providers that may not know the language. So let me pause and have Joey. Joey, can you do just a quick COLA one-on-one? Because it is a good point. We do a lot of acronyms in the room, and others may not understand even the concept of the COLA.
Yeah, so I can kind of take a stab too, and I'm happy to send anything back in writing if that's easier for folks. For the general childcare program, so CCTR and CMIG, COLAs are applied to agencies whose reimbursement rates are based on the SRR, the standard reimbursement rate. The COLA is applied to as an increase to the SRR, and contractors receive the proportional increase in their contract funding. It ensures that there's no change in the amount of service that contractors are funded to provide. And then for all of the other childcare programs, outside of CCTR and CMIG, that receive a COLA, the COLA is applied as an increase in the total program funding. So each contractor will receive a percent of total increase based on their contracted amount. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit for everybody. But again, happy to throw things in the chat too. I know I talk a little fast. So.
Thank you, Joey. Okay, and let's see. It says, can you please talk about the hold harmless for next year, and will it stay or will it end as it is now? So I could definitely speak about that, the hold harmless. So as you know, for the past 2 fiscal years, so fiscal year starting at 21, 22, and then 22 to 23, we have included in the budget what we reference and coined as hold harmless, which I'll translate that for sure, meaning that we pay based on enrollment and not attendance, right? So based on maximum certified hours of care in a sense. And so the question is in regards to whether that will continue. So I do want to acknowledge that right now that is something that, as you noticed with the Jan 10 budget that the governor released, there is not, at this point, there's not a proposal in regards to continuing the payment and enrollment. So as it stands now, that flexibility would end 6/30 of 2023, and then we would go back to our regs of how we implemented regs after the state. Okay, let me see here. Let me give some time to shift over to hand raise. And Digna and Corey, if you can help me by calling on who is the first person that has their hand raised.
Yes, Michelle Holmes has her hand raised. Michelle, are you able to unmute yourself, please? You're unmuted. Oh, and Michelle, you're unmuted.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to have my hand up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Nora Martinez. Nora, can you please unmute yourself? Nora, you're unmuted. Nora Martinez. Go ahead, Nora. Okay, let's try Deborah Corley.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning and afternoon. For those who feels it's the afternoon. Thank you for having this meeting here. First, I want to thank Governor Newsom, other legislatures, as well as their teams for working with CCPU. Providers need this support and this work here. I want to ask providers here what Dr. Lupe just mentioned about the reimbursement based on enrollment and not based on enrollment and not attendance ending June 30th, 2023. We need to contact our governor and remind him that we need this to continue through the next fiscal year. I would also like to make a note about the RFA2, that I feel that the state failed providers when they only allowed large providers to apply for this particular grant if they had a loss during the pandemic, a capacity loss. But the fact a capacity loss, a loss is a loss. I feel that the state at this point should reconsider that and allow all providers, small and large, to participate in the RFA2 now and not necessarily wait for the future. I would also like to point out and ask, when CCPU's JLMC had given the recommendation for the rate reform, I'd like to know if the state accepted it, agreed it, and recognized the recommendations of the JLMC. And lastly, to the $10 million that's given to the RMRs, does this mean that the RMRs are going to continue to pump children until they're into their state-ran preschools instead of referring them properly and fairly to family daycare providers? Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for your comment. I want to first thank you for always being able to lift up the voices that you represent and be able to give us continuous feedback in regards to what you have referenced. I'm going to try to go in order based on your feedback to make sure that I captured everything. First, just a clarification, Deborah, on the very first one, which is the request for application number 2. That's the new, just to be sure, that's the new construction and major repairs that you're referring to. Let me pause and make sure I.
Yes, Dr. Lupe, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so let me first appreciate the feedback that's coming back. We've heard it also quite a lot with, specifically with our large providers. And some background on this RFA is that it's due at the end of this month. It is earmarked funding for capacity increase, and how capacity increase is being interpreted in regards to this specific dollar is that it is for a small family childcare home provider, for instance, to go to a large, and if they need new construction or major repair to support that, then they would be able to apply for this funding. Or if a center, for instance, would like to open up another classroom and needs making this up, has another construction to build that classroom up, then they can also apply for these dollars. Those are just 2 examples of that. If, for instance, a large family childcare home would like to then apply for these dollars, because they're already large, then they would not be able to expand that license any further. And so therefore, they're unless it's a disaster that is declared, like a fire, etc., in regards to that area, and there's a definition of that too. So, so just to clarify, who can apply and who can't, in my short summary there. So, want to just acknowledge that what you raised, Deborah, is something that we will continue to take back. I appreciate the feedback on that, but also did just a short summary that the small family childcare homes, you know, if you are considering going large, please apply. Please apply. We want to make sure that that you are also able to recognize that this is something you can apply. Now, in terms of rate reform, yes, by having us have this in the budget, governor's budget, we are recognizing the work that both the JEL and CC did, as well as the work group into this. We know that there's more discussions coming on this, but I think it was important to first acknowledge the work that was done, and that was represented also in both the governor's discussion when he talked about childcare, as well as what was put out in public. So we look forward to continuing to partner with our Childcare Provider United in regards to next steps in regards to rate reform. And then the last piece regarding the 10 million for CCR&Rs. So the 10 million is a continuation of what the funding that R&Rs have received. So in 2021-22, the R&Rs received the 10 million, and then that was ongoing with 22-23, and this, in a sense, annualized it to keep that going. We are, though, continuing to hear in regards to the referral system, and want to acknowledge that we acknowledge what you say, Deborah, and others in regards to having us continue to look at the referrals. I think that's an opportunity to partner with our CCR&Rs as well as with CCPUs and others about how to make sure that we are feeling comfortable with the referral process itself. There is, you know, steps that we are taking, both as we're having conversations with the CCR&Rs, that also includes the state in us. We go out to, for instance, do some auditing in regards to state dollars, and there's questions in our template that we use to look to see and pull to see what those referrals look like for those R&Rs. And that's typical practice that we have done in the past, but definitely an area that we can continue to have conversations and ensure that everyone is aware of that process and of how that takes place and what we can do to continue to grow in that area, and look forward to partnering with everyone with that question. Perfect.
Thank you, Dr. Lupe.
Thank you. Jigna?
Yes, we have a question from Pamela Cotton Roberts. Pamela, can you unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I have a question about the PENS program, the new requirement for the AB 2827 exceptional needs. I was kind of hearing it, but not hearing it. So can you kind of clarify what does that exist of? So our students who are in the child care providers, is that including us? Because I think I heard him, Lupe, say something about single licenses.
Maybe. Yes, thank you, Pamela, for that question. Let me see here. 28, is it 28?
27, and that's a licensing bill, correct? And that is specific to centers. But Pamela, I can post a link in the chat to the
to the child care providers?
To the centers.
Centers. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's try to get question answered from Pamela Rocha. Pamela?
Hi, yes, I'm a child care provider in Siskiyou County. I'm also a large child care provider. I've been operating all throughout COVID. My question is, I've noticed lately on my attendance sheets, I am being paid only when kids are in care, not just their contracted days. So like I have several to school. So like last month for Christmas, they were off for 2 weeks. So I still had other kids. I'm not being paid for those kids via subsidy clients. So do I need to bill my parents separately, or is this something that the state should be paying?
Pamela, thank you so much for that question. Since it's unique to your situation, I'm going to ask if you could do me the favor, and in the question and answers, please put your email as well as the agency name. And then what I'm going to have is Erica, I think you're on, from PQI, or somebody from the PQI team reach out to you to learn more about the circumstance, and then we can see if we can liaison a discussion also with the agency to determine whether there is, like you've mentioned, if there is some payment that we need to continue because it is based on enrollment, or if there's a reason why that is not being applied. And so let's do that as next steps.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lupe. Thank you. That's correct.
So, and then my next question, as far as that goes, with our COVID days that we just received, that was voted into the additional 16 days, how is that going to be expiring in March? Or, because I mean, COVID's not going away, or that, because that was the issue that I ran into in September. COVID days went away, and after the COVID days went away is when my family got COVID for the first time, so I went unpaid.
Got it. So for the non-op days regarding COVID related, that goes through 6/30 of 2023. Right now, there is no new proposal in regards to the continuation of that past that date.
So child care providers can't have COVID past June of 2023.
It's more about that the policy itself, right, would not continue past that, as we are talking about the first budget, the governor's January 10 budget, as a proposal.
It's not anything.
Oh, so sweet. Anything else that we're able to answer for you?
You want Bubba?
Okay, Jigna, is there anyone else with their hand raised?
Yes. I have Yvonne Cottage. Hey, Yvonne.
Look at me. Are you full?
Hello. Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I do just want to thank you guys for your replies, and thank you for addressing the comments in the Q&A as well. I have a concern about the hold harmless being discontinued. That's going to be a big problem, and I want to know what the state is doing. What will they do proactively when that becomes a problem? Because we, as providers, when we have a contract with an agency, we're required to charge them the same amount. We're required to charge our cash clients the same amount as R&R. And what we do with our cash clients, they pay for the spot. They pay for the enrollment spot. And so I'm wondering why that's not the same across the board, and why the hold harmless is not being continued, because that is going to put a big hole in providers' income. if they, it's like when you pay your cable bill, you can't tell the cable company, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. Don't charge me for that week. It's kind of the same thing. And in order for providers to have a safe, secure income and have it be equitable and have it be, equitable across the board, that has to continue. And I'm just wondering what, if anything, the state will be doing when that becomes a problem.
Yvonne, I really appreciate the direct feedback that you're providing us on the conclusion of the hold harmless, and also want to just call out the importance that you're sharing in regards to that. I think what I'm hearing is both two things. One, it will impact financially, and then the second thing I'm hearing from you is also in regards to the difference in regards to charging a private pay parent that pays full tuition versus a family on a subsidy that may not, that has a different type of approach, or the state has a different type of approach after July 1st. I think it's something that we will continue to take back as I'm hearing you say that. And again, this is something that we will continue to have a further conversation on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your feedback and your comments. I am mindful of the time. We had allotted 1 hour for this. I think from looking at our questions in our chat, much of this is very important as it serves a lot of feedback to us in regards to the budget and things that we continue to make sure that are pressing, that many of you are wanting to make sure we are aware of that. And so we will continue to look at these and read through these questions and as well as feedback. As we are getting to the end of our presentation, please know that, again, our governor's budget, we wanted to make sure that you were aware of what was included. There'll be other venues that we can continue to answer any questions in regards to what you may have with us. I know that some of you have put in specific scenarios in regards to payments or why I'm not being paid this, and what have you, Pamela, thank you so much for adding your email on here. And so we're noting all those. We can follow up with you because we want to make sure that we're partnering together in regards to this. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, and just want to also apologize that during the presentation, it seems like I'm getting darker and darker. The light in my office is not the greatest. So I try to play with my camera, but definitely want to just call that out too. So just some upcoming events for everyone to be aware of. The quarterly stakeholder transition update call that will take place on January 27th in 2023 from 9 to 10:30. This is our time to review what we have in the transition report that we produce quarterly for the legislator and provide highlights also in some of the programming that is occurring. So we hope that you're able to join us for that upcoming event. And in the chat, we should also have information in regards to that. And then finally, just want to continue to thank you all. Thank you for your honest feedback. Thank you for your courage in regards to being able to tell us what is impacting you today. And thank you for just continuing to provide us honest conversations that we want to continue to have together. So with that, then, we have here on our thank you slide a couple of resources for you. In the chat, you will see that we have the Child Care and Development Budget Summary included. You have that for you to review too. The Child Care info for the budget summary is under also Health and Human Services chapter, and we have that also in the chat for you. And then the full proposed budget summary that is also in the chat for you. And then as a reminder to please visit our Child Care and Development Division webpage for programming updates and email us with any comments or questions you may have. With that final statement, expressing gratitude, and want to just go ahead and say that we're going to leave the chat on for maybe about maybe about 2 minutes to allow for any final last feedback or questions, and then that will conclude our presentation. Thank you, everyone.